All right, let's talk about something that's got everyone in the software world buzzing, vibe coding. You've probably heard the term floating around, right? It's this wild idea that you can basically just think of an app and poof, it exists. But what does that actually mean? Let's get into it.
So what's the big promise here? Well, it's pretty huge. Imagine going straight from an idea in your head, a concept, a vibe, directly to a working app. We're talking about completely crushing the time it takes to get from, hey, what if, to, here, try this.
And this isn't just some made-up term. It actually comes from Andrej Karpathy, one of the founding members of OpenAI. He put it really simply. It's a new kind of coding where you just give into the vibes. You tell an LLM what you want to build, and it just goes and builds it for you. You talk, it codes. Simple as that.
Okay, so to get a little more specific, vibe coding is basically this. It's a way of developing where you use your own words, you can speak them, you can type them, to describe the software you want. Then an AI model, like an LLM, takes what you said and just writes the code for you. It's a total game changer.
I mean, that sounds incredible, right? Almost like magic. A tool that could totally change how we build, everything. But here's the big question. Is it really that simple?
Yeah, the short answer, nope. Not at all. Vibe coding is definitely not magic. And if you just jump in thinking it is, things can go sideways fast. I'm talking about those horror stories you see online, developers losing weeks of work because they treated the AI like a genie instead of what it is, a very powerful but very literal tool.
So, that's the million-dollar question. How do you do it the right way? Well, that's exactly what we're here for. We're going to break down the 5 core principles. Think of this as the real secret sauce, the playbook for making vibe coding actually work for you.
And here's the roadmap for what we're about to cover. There are 5 key skills you've got to master. We've got thinking, frameworks, checkpoints, debugging, and context. So let's dive into each one, starting at the top.
All right, first up, and honestly, this is the most important one, thinking. You got to remember, the AI is not a mind reader. It can't guess what you want. If your vision is fuzzy, the code is going to be fuzzy. This means you have to go way beyond just a simple idea. You need to think about the logic, what is this app, the analysis, how does it actually work, and the procedure, how do I make this thing great? The clearer your vision, the better the code, period.
Okay, so how do you get all that thinking out of your head and into a format the AI can understand? Here's a pro tip. Draft a product requirements document, a PRD. It sounds formal, but it's really just a way to force yourself to get super clear on your project, its features, and its goals. It gives the AI a solid blueprint to work from.
Number 2, frameworks. The key here is to think of the AI as your partner, not your magician. You really don't want it just inventing stuff from scratch. That's a recipe for disaster. Instead, you're the director. You guide it. You tell it, hey, use React for the front end, or let's use Three.js for these animations. You're pointing it to existing, reliable tools for the job.
Okay, principle number 3. This one is absolutely non-negotiable. I'm talking about checkpoints. You must always use version control. Look, things are going to break. That's just a fact of development. And if you don't have checkpoints, you're one bad command away from losing everything. Don't risk it.
And speaking of things breaking, that brings us to number 4, debugging. The big mindset shift here is that it's not a failure. It's just part of the process. It's an interactive conversation with the AI. You have to be methodical. Tell it, hey, I got this error. Paste the full error message. And if you have a hunch where the problem is, point it to the right file. Treat it like your co-pilot.
And that leads us perfectly into our final principle, context. This one's super simple to remember. The more detail you give the AI, the better the result you're going to get. It's that classic idea, garbage in, garbage out. So give it detailed prompts. Give it mockups if you have them. Give it those full error messages. The more context, the better.
All right, that was a lot, I know. So how do you remember all 5? Easy. Just remember this little phrase. The friendly cat dances constantly. Thinking, frameworks, checkpoints, debugging, context. Got it? Cool. Because mastering these principles is step 1. Next, we need to talk about the right tools for the job. Okay, so let's get practical. Let's talk about your vibe coding toolkit. What are the mindsets and, just as important, the actual tools you need to not only succeed, but also to make sure you don't lose all your work?
And if you're wondering just how critical this is, take a look at this. This is a real post from a developer. 2 weeks. 2 weeks of work just gone. Corrupted. All because they didn't have the right safety nets. This is the exact nightmare scenario we're trying to avoid.
So, how do we avoid that? With the Essential Toolkit. It's made up of 3 things. First, your safety net, version control. We're talking Git and GitHub. Second, the MVP mindset. Start small with a minimum viable product and then build on it. And third, knowing which mode you're in. Are you implementing something new or are you debugging something that's broken? You got to know the difference.
You're also going to need to pick a place to actually do the work, right? Your environment. On one hand, you've got cloud platforms like Replit. These are awesome for beginners, super fast to get started, everything's in one place. But they might not scale for really big projects. On the other hand, you have local AI editors. These are more robust, they give you way more control, but they do have a steeper learning curve.
Okay, let's zoom out for a second. We've talked about the principles, the tools, but what does all this really mean? What's the bigger picture here for the future of software and for developers? What we're seeing is a massive shift in the role of the developer. It's really changing from being a code writer, someone who just types out every single line by hand, to being more of a vision director or an AI partner. Your job becomes defining the goal with crystal clarity and then guiding the AI to build it.
And this chart really shows you what that looks like. In the old way, manual coding was a huge part of the job. But with vibe coding, that piece gets a lot smaller. And what grows to take its place? Vision and strategy. It completely flips the script on what skills are most valuable.
So, what's the big takeaway from all of this? It's that the #1 skill for a developer going forward isn't just about how well you can write code anymore. It's about how well you can articulate a vision. It's your ability to think, to plan, and to communicate that plan to your AI partner.
And that leaves us with one final thought. The big question for developers is changing right before our eyes. It's not how well can you code anymore. The new question is, how well can you explain your vision? And that, my friends, is a whole new ballgame.